Hello everybody and welcome to my guide on Crystalline Conflict, the 101 crash course to PvP. Now, this is not like the feast, but I'm super glad it's finally here because this is a new mode and it's not PvE, which means you need an entirely different approach to seize victory and climb the ranks. So in this video, I'll go over 10 important things you absolutely need to know before you get started with Crystalline Conflict. Now the first one is really obvious, but it really gets overlooked to the point where it just baffles me. Crystalline Conflict is a linear and light version of MOBA games like Dota 2 or League of Legends, etc. But it's a game based on teams and teamwork centered around an objective. Emphasis on teams and teamwork. Numbers here are king and you need to play with that in mind and not get yourself killed because that gives you a respawn timer and not only increases each time you are incapacitated, but it puts your team at a disadvantage for those few seconds and that can just change the tide of the game. If you see there are a couple deaths in your team, back off, retreat, and regroup. You can't really charge into 5 people with just 2 and expect to win, because even though your death does not give any buffs to the enemy, you're basically griefing your own party by giving those crucial seconds to the opposition where they have one less player to deal with. Now imagine if that one turned into 3. It's really going to kill your game and lead to a loss. Alright, so this other tip I have for you guys is about Purify. Now in PvP, in Crystalline Conflict, everyone has the Purify skill, which allows you to basically remove debuffs inflicted on you. Now you can check the skill description and it tells you which debuffs it removes, and I believe it does not work against seduction or something like that. But the way I use Purify, right, is that I only use it when I'm stunned. Why? Because if I'm inflicted with heavy, the only reason for me to use Purify is if I'm being attacked by the entire enemy team, like multiple people just hard focusing on me. That's when I use Purify, is if I have heavy inflicted on me. But if I had to prioritize these status debuffs, I would only use Purify if I'm stunned, because being stunned just makes it so that I can't use anything at all, and that is actually pretty disadvantageous. But if you just have heavy, right, like your only movement speed is affected, so like you can just wait it out by using guard, for example, or stuff like that. Like if you're a ninja, you can just use Shikuchi, or maybe use a Mudra with Meisui or Huton, stuff like that. So many options are available to you, right? But in the end, it all comes down to priority, in my opinion. So I use Purify when I am, when I'm stunned, because that just basically renders me unable to do anything for a few seconds, and those few seconds can be a matter of life and death. So now, the second tip I have for you is the PvP cross hotbar, and if you're a controller player, then you need to enable this first and foremost, and then adjust your settings to make targeting enemy players a lot easier. I'll add a piece of footage over here so I can go over the settings and everything, but your PvP skills only need one hotbar, but you can set quick chat commands to your second hotbar, and these messages can really make a difference when you're in the right team. Of course, even if a team is not together, messages can sometimes just give them an idea of what to do, so it can actually have an effect on how your game turns out to be. Plus, you can also put signs on your hotbar, which makes it easier to prioritize targets and tell your party members who to go after in the heat of battle. Okay, so this third tip I have is really important, because this is Crystalline Conflict and you need to focus on the objective, which is the crystal, and to get the crystal to the enemy's base. Now of course, everything over here in this mode revolves around the crystal. You are engaging in battle with the enemy to contest for the crystal and push it forward. You can win if you go after killing every single member in the opposition party and just chase them to the opposite end of the arena when you have your own team members contesting for the crystal. So don't be that selfish glory chaser that just goes after the straggler with 10% HP just because you want to get an extra kill in your PvP summary list or whatever. because honestly, that's not really gonna work, and you'll probably get yourself killed instead when those other dead members in the opposition just respawn and gank you near the enemy base. So don't do that. Focus on the objective, which is the crystal, and this is definitely going to give you an entirely new outlook on the game itself. Alright, so this fourth tip I have is about the map locations. Now, they matter a lot more than you think. You have to observe each map and know its strengths and weaknesses. Get used to its layout and plan your play accordingly. One example I have, and this is from my point of view as a machinist, I basically stay near points where it's easy for me to snipe enemies, while it's also easy for me to make an escape if it comes down to it. I'm a machinist. I'm a sniper. I'm not a melee duelist, and my job is to pressure the enemy that's engaged with my melee teammates. In Volcanic Heart and Palestra, I stay near the sprint tracks to make it easier to retreat if needed. In Cloud9, and this is more of a general tip, but use guard to counter turbulence and delay it until you see the countdown is at 2 or 1 for the turbulence. Because what this basically does is that it gives you the full duration of guard and allows you to counter turbulence, plus it also lets you see which opponents used guard, so it's easy to pick them off once they fall to the ground and lose 30,000 HP, because it really hits hard. And that can honestly change the tide of the game, because it lets you wipe the opposition if you do this right and, push the crystal forward. Alright, so the next step is about jobs. Now, they matter in PvP, and whichever job you pick has to be played in a very specific manner for it to be 100% effective and efficient. Right now in PvP, I've been using Ninja, Warrior, and Machinist, and each of those jobs have their own strengths and weaknesses. You have to know your role and play to your job's strengths. For example, a machinist, like I said earlier, I'm a sniper. I'm not supposed to engage in melee combat unless I have to use like Bio Blaster or something like that. But my job is to stay at the back and snipe enemy members, because that is the only thing in which I can be useful. I've got to support my teammates and basically pick off those enemy members from afar, and that's my job, and I have to do it. And if I don't, I'm basically griefing my own party. The sixth tip is about mindset and patience. This is PvP, and that means you're competing against other players. There will always be someone better than you, and you need to have the humble mindset and focus on keeping a cool head and being patient. Because it's easy to get frustrated when you lose a lot, and to casual PvPers, it can kill the fresh feeling and enthusiasm of PvP real quick. This is really important because not only can it affect your enjoyment of the game, but the frustration can affect other things you do as well, especially in real life. The next tip I have is controllable factors. Now, it's a harsh truth, but you can only control how good or bad you are in the game. PvP, Crystalline Conflict, is a team mode, and you can't really make pre-made teams right now, and if you're dealt a bad hand, you only have yourself to rely on in that game. You can either blame your team, yourself, or both, and it's easier to just blame others. Now, this ties into the other thing I said before about each job having its own specific way to play and all that. And that's because you need to play it, because if you're not doing it that way, you're not playing to your full potential, and that can get you losses. PvP rotations are different, the skill rotations are different, and they have substance to them. So spend some time at the dummy in Wolves Den Beer and get comfortable with it. Read your skill descriptions because you absolutely need to. The next tip I have is to keep an eye on limit break gauges, because this is important, and it's important because, like I said, Ninja, Warrior, Machinist, Samurai, like these jobs, even Dragoon, like the limit breaks right now in PvP, they have a lot of power, and if you're not aware of the situation, it's easy to get picked off and lead to a literal loss. Because you can see limit gauges right on the party list besides the names. You have those job icons, and underneath that you see a yellow gauge that is constantly filling and being depleted. That is the limit gauge. You need to keep an eye on that, because if your enemy team has a ninja, for example, or a machinist, and your party is like taking damage and all of a sudden you get to like 50% or below, a ninja would instantly just nuke the entire team, and then they'll be able to push the crystal forward and get a victory. Plus, this ties into machinists as well, because let's say you manage to get away from the ninja, right? But they have a machinist as well. Guess what? A bullet is coming from 50 yards away and you won't live through it. You will die. Unless of course you guard it, but then again, in the heat of battle, mistakes can happen. So it is crucial that you keep an eye on limit break gauges so that you're more aware of your surroundings, the situation, and of course, it will lead to better decisions which can change the game. This also is connected to the next tip I'm about to give, which is to guard preemptively in a clash when you know the opponent is going to use a hard-hitting attack. Because the point of guard is to minimize damage early on. It's not there to be used when you're 1 foot in the grave already. Of course, when you're like retreating from the battle, it can help you out, but overall, it's there to prevent damage. So guard basically negates 90% of the incoming damage, right? So if you use it too late, congrats, because you managed to delay your deletion by 5 seconds, and that's not very useful. So use guard preemptively and be aware of the situation. Alright, so the final tip I have is to adjust the PvP HUD to suit your style and make it more convenient for you. If you go into the system menu and click the HUD layout, you can select the deity option to adjust Crystalline Conflict and elements, and it's something that can make things easier for you to look at, and it varies from player to player. But overall, it will allow you to get a clearer or better understanding of the entire PvP situation and lead to better decision making overall. But yeah, that's it from me. I hope this guide helps you in getting better in PvP. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe for more content, click the notification bell, leave a comment, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.